Good evening, and thank you for joining me for another Boring Books for Bedtime. I hope tonight's selection provides all the boredom your busy brain needs to quiet down and let you get some sleep. Before we begin, I'd like to give a special shout out of thanks to some new members of our Patreon family: Fuchsia, Amy, Jordan, Barbara, and Kate. Thank you all so much for supporting this podcast. By becoming members of Patreon, you help us remain 100% listener supported and ad-free for everyone, and it's very much appreciated. If you're interested in supporting Boring Books for Bedtime and finding out more about the perks available to subscribers, including topic collections and episodes heard nowhere else, you'll find a link to Patreon in the show description. You'll also find a link to buymeacoffee.com where you can support us with a one-time tip, no subscription required. I hope you'll take a moment to check them out. Now, let's read and relax. Find a comfortable spot. Adjust your volume. Take a nice deep breath in. Let it out slowly. And off we go. Tonight, let's return to a handy guide, Bicycling for Ladies, with hints as to the art of wheeling, advice to beginners, dress, care of the bicycle, mechanics, training, exercise, etc., etc., by Maria E. Ward. Copyright 1896 by Brentanos of New York, Chicago, Washington, and Paris. Let's pick up right where we left off at Chapter 7. Let's begin. Chapter 7. A few things to remember. Two important points for the bicyclist to study are avoidance of road traffic and consideration of the surface ridden over. The law of the road applies to all traffic passing over the road. The law of mechanics to the surface of the road, as it affects the bicycle and the cycler. In cities, on much-used thoroughfares, careful work, quick eyes, experience, and caution are demanded to ensure safety. The law of the road: keep to the right, pass on the left, anything going in the same direction, is explicit, and if always observed would render collisions almost impossible. The avoidance of careless and unobservant travelers is quite a study. Passing to the right, you can see and be seen. Passing on the left, a traveler moving in the same direction does not become aware of your intention without being notified. You give notice to prevent others from changing their direction and to enable them thus to avoid crowding. To pass a vehicle on the road when traveling in the same direction involves increase of speed if the vehicle in front maintains its pace. Should it go slower or stop and the roadway permits, a change of pace is neither necessary nor desirable unless you wish to steady your machine. In nearing any vehicle or person coming from the opposite direction, keep your share of the road. Be always alert and observant. Do not fail to give ample room to the approaching vehicle. But on the other hand, do not permit yourself to be crowded or inconvenienced, and keep enough of the roadway on your right in reserve in case a change of direction becomes necessary. The importance of having your machine at all times perfectly under control cannot be overestimated. put faith in your pedaling and never ride at greater speed than you can determine and check at will. Dependence on any brake, however perfect its action, is bad practice. Vehicles approaching pass each other on the right. In case of collision, the vehicle which has maintained the proper side of the roadway has the advantage in case of legal controversy. In passing a vehicle drawn by horses, the bicycle should keep to the center of the roadway when possible, leaving the curb for the horse-drawn vehicle. The bicycle can only draw away from the curb and is limited to one direction. The center of the roadway, therefore, affords the best opportunity for a change of direction. Sit well on your saddle. Observe the adjustment of the center of gravity, but ride on the pedals, using the weight as much as possible. Trust to the pedals only for rough riding and for unexpected inequalities of surface. The study of the mechanics of balance, resistance, and friction is most interesting in this connection, as their action affects cycler or wheel or the combined mechanisms. The law of the road is simple and very generally understood, though there are reckless and ignorant people who disregard it. The law defines where you shall ride, how you shall pass, and sets a limit to increase of speed beyond what is considered compatible with the general safety. There is, besides, the unwritten law of courtesy, more often observed than disregarded, and there is the law you make for yourself. The traffic of a crowded thoroughfare may be analyzed, and the conduct of a wheel explained and simplified, though travel on such routes is difficult at best and had better be avoided. Given a long straight road with two streams of travel from opposite directions, one of these streams will consist of vehicles, quadrupeds, and pedestrians, few maintaining an even rate of progress, fewer still the same rate. The law requires that you pass on the left, and you must await the opportunity to do so. When a clear way opens, take immediate advantage of it and increase your speed. Should there not be room enough to pass, signal, and the vehicle in advance is bound to make way for you. Should there be a free road to the right, you may take it, but only with the consent of the traveler ahead, and then at your own risk. Never ride more than two abreast. Riding in single file with ample room for turning is better on a crowded street or when making time. For moderate wheeling, the cyclist being disciplined and drilled, the distance between bicycles may be shortened, but control of the wheel should be absolute before this is attempted. When traveling at even a moderate rate of speed, a certain distance between wheels should be observed. When in single file, turn on the same line, but not at the same time as the leader. Inexperienced wheelers are apt to turn at the moment the wheel ahead turns. Should you be following close, keep on your own line, unless you see good cause to change your direction. If the leader wishes to stop, let him turn out. If you are wanted, you will know soon enough. Gain all the distance you can between dismounts. A little drill and the understanding of a few signals will prove very useful. For the public at large, the bicycle may be specialized to suit individual needs, and locomotion becomes simplified. Distances are reduced, and the obliterated landscape of railroad travel takes form and substance. Cycling means travel over well-constructed highways with telephone and telegraph, post office and express office, usually easily accessible. To enjoy the full freedom that wheeling should give, little luggage should be carried. Yet that little must include all necessaries. When a party of 6 or even 12 start to wheel a given distance, what are the problems to be met? All being fairly expert cyclists in good practice, sociability is incidental while making time. On the road, attention, strict attention, to business and to the signals is necessary. Conversation is not prohibited. It is entirely dependent upon the nature of the surface you are traveling. How to keep together is a vexed question, and a very nice adjustment of animate and inanimate mechanism would be necessary to its satisfactory settlement. The better way is, all knowing the road, to wheel along independently with an occasional halt, not necessarily a dismount, assembling at intervals of half or 3/4 of an hour. The leader should keep back until the roller of the party is hailed and has reported. Then increase speed again until the next interval has elapsed. Another plan is to wheel with only a given number of minutes headway, this arrangement keeping the roller up always within hailing distance. A good leader deserves implicit confidence. He has responsibilities aside from wheeling, for the comfort and convenience of others must be intelligently studied, and consideration for each individual cyclist in the party makes constant demand on the qualities of tact and decision. In other words, the leader must possess good judgment and be as well a thorough bicyclist. The present rate of wheeling averages 10 miles an hour, and greater speed is undesirable except for special purposes. A point to keep in mind is that every 5 minutes halt is a mile lost. The time lost in slowing and stopping should also be carefully taken, as it is of value in reckoning possible mileage. There are grades to hesitate about, and there are grades to avoid. If a grade seems possible, try it, but dismount the instant it becomes hard work. It is better to dismount too soon than to persist too long. Without regard to the inclination, there are two principal kinds of grades, the increased grade and the decreased grade. In mounting the increased grade, more and more power is required at every stroke to push the machine upward. In mounting the decreased grade, this additional power is not necessary, and the ascent is accomplished with little fatigue. Increase of grade means application of more power in ascending and an increase of momentum in descending. This is, on the whole, the most dangerous kind of bicycle travel, for overwork on the ascent, loss of pedals, or dangerous coasting on the descent are to be expected, and danger should be looked for and observed in time to be avoided. It is always well to walk an increasing grade, if the hill be long and steep, both in ascending and descending. The decreasing grade has many pleasant features, and on a well-known road may be ridden up or down with ease and with little danger of injury. It is interesting to watch the effect of individual adjustment to hill work, a group of bicyclists being almost always scattered when mounting a grade. When and where to apply power, and when to make the push tell best on his own machine, each cyclist must determine by practice and experience. Sometimes, a long and apparently easy downgrade is rendered dangerous by its increase of pitch, and seemingly easy roads are often difficult to travel on account of an increasing but almost imperceptible ascent. Unless power is applied to the stroke at the right place, much inconvenience from fatigue will be felt, and will soon overcome the ambitious bicyclist. When short expeditions are to be undertaken, all trips of more than an hour's duration being so classed, remember that lack of preparation means delay, and that ignorance entails discomfort. If the start is to be an early one, go over the bicycle carefully. See that the lamp is in order, that matches are convenient, tools and repair kit in place, a small envelope of sewing materials with needle and thread, and another of Red Cross supplies in the pocket. I have often been laughed at for taking out my lamp for a short afternoon's ride with friends who could ride well enough for their own satisfaction, and as often have I been obliged to help with my lantern's light, belated wheels coming in close behind me. A lantern is a convenience at dusk or even earlier, enabling others to see and avoid you, and this helps more than the uncertain light annoys. For luncheon on a short trip, it is quite safe to depend on the road. If you carry luncheon, a couple of bread and butter sandwiches, well wrapped in waterproof paper, and thin slices of cheese in a separate paper, or hard chocolate and water biscuit, are as good as anything, and such a luncheon may prevent delay in swampy or foggy or damp country from becoming dangerous. Study the country you are to travel and the road surface. Understand your map. Know your route, its general direction, etc. Always observe the road you cover. Keep a small notebook and jot down everything of interest. Use the pocket compass, even in your home locality, to fix general direction. For when detained at night, such knowledge may prove useful. Fog and rain, or a moonless night, are bewildering, rendering familiar roads weird and strange, and unlike the driver or equestrian in the dark, a bicyclist must trust to himself alone. Wheeling in the dark, however, has some advantages, as you are apt to ride in a straight line and not turn out for bad places in the road. On the other hand, a certain amount of risk is necessarily taken. There should be no close riding, and constant care should be exercised for the avoidance of collision. Cycling offers endless opportunities for the formation of clubs, and cycling clubs there are of all ages and sizes. A simple form of club for the earlier phases of the sport may be organized in this way. Buy 2 bicycles and form as small a club as can manage their purchase. Keep a register and pass the bicycles from member to member for, say, a week at a time. Repairs in case of accident to be paid for by the member using the wheel at the time of the accident. The club may later be enlarged by receiving any desired number of members and purchasing additional wheels in proportion. But nothing is so satisfactory as a chosen mount of your own, adjusted to suit your individual needs and kept for your own exclusive use. A bicycle exactly adjusted to your liking should be jealously devoted to your individual use. A beautiful machine should be kept free from finger marks. Keep a chamois and a clean piece of cheesecloth at hand where it is kept, and use them. Nickel holds its polish if not attacked by acid or grease. Enamel should be treated differently, with cold water, sponge, and chamois after light dusting. Chapter 8. The Art of Wheeling a Bicycle. There are 3 very important methods of controlling the bicycle, namely, steering by the hands, guiding by foot pressure on the pedals, and guiding by the swaying of the body, and these methods may be used separately or in combination. The wheels are kept in motion either by pedaling or simply by gravity in descending a grade. The use of the hands on the handlebar is twofold for the inexperienced: for steering and for correcting undue pressure on the pedals. The hand opposite the pedal that receives too much pressure corrects the tendency of the bicycle by an extra pull on the handlebars. This is very good exercise, but it is a useless expenditure of force, and cannot be prolonged without great fatigue. It is the work of hill climbing done on the level. The feet are on the pedals, and the natural tendency is to press equally at all times on both pedals, and pull at the same time on both handles. One pedal must descend, and the other pedal must ascend. They are attached to the same axle, which is turned by either pedal or both pedals. As the pedals are always on opposite sides of a circle, one is always coming up, and its upward tendency is resisted by any pressure, however slight. The lifting of the foot, therefore, from the ascending pedal means easy wheeling. This is one of the hardest things to realize. If there is little or no pressure to resist from the upcoming pedal, it is necessary to expend but little force to propel or push the down pedal, only enough indeed to overcome the weight or inertia of the bicycle and the bicyclist, and of surface friction, provided there is no grade. But of grades there are many, and to this is due the infinite variety of the sport of cycling, the muscular development and increased respiration of the cycler. The handlebar should at all times be ready to receive a sudden grip or squeeze. Grip the handles hard when you want to hold on, and only pull as much as is absolutely necessary, for if the arms are stiff and rigid from pulling on the bars, they will not be sensitive enough to control the bicycle. The handles of the bar are the ends of a pair of levers, and the nearer the hand to the center of the bar, the less power is needed to oppose the other hand. When there is a tendency to pull hard on the handles, gradually slip the hands near the middle of the bar, and the pull will ease up. The front wheel, to run easily, should run steadily, and the less wiggle there is, the better for steady travel. The pedal is the projection on the crank adapted to the use of the foot. There are many varieties of pedals, of different sorts, weights, patterns, and purposes. The foot placed on the pedal pushes it down. The push is communicated to the wheel to propel the bicycle forward. As the pedal leaves the dead center, the power begins to take effect, and continues until the dead center below is reached. Now it is necessary to push at just the right time and place. If too soon and too hard, the wheels of the bicycle will go too fast, and must be retarded by pressing down on the upcoming pedal. the natural weight pressure of the foot is more than enough to propel the bicycle over ordinary surfaces at a fair rate of speed without the application of great muscular power. The foot should be placed squarely on the pedal, the ball of the foot only resting on it, and the toe pointing downward. The foot may be made to perform diverse duties, and numberless new combinations of pressure can be and are called for and applied. To apply more power in the stroke, begin to push when the pedal is all the way up, the toe pointing down until at the lowest part of the stroke, ready to follow the pedal around, pushing it backwards and helping to lift it. Here, the toe clip helps and holds the foot on the pedal in the place where the tendency to leave it is greatest. Balanced pedaling is a little different, and weight pressure on the pedal is used as a factor to overcome the front wheel. Use the weight as much as possible to propel and reserve the push for hard grade work. Keep the knees well turned in. It squares the foot and prevents the ankle from receiving hard knocks. When the knee is turned out, the ankle bones are turned in, and so receive many a bruise that could have been avoided. To keep the ankles from interfering, turn the knees in and ride square leg. Controlling a bicycle on a downgrade requires pressure on the ascending pedal. Point the heel down or hold the toe up, and an even pressure will be maintained. Let the lift come with the heel well squared and the leg as straight as possible, the weight to be supplied at the right point on the upstroke to control the machine. Always use the weight when possible as a supplementary driving power. The pedals differ in construction and in material, being differently adapted for racing and for road work. A pedal with a good, broad resting surface for the foot is very comfortable, though a rat trap pedal used with a stiff-soled shoe is lighter and preferable. Toe clips are desirable for those who can use them easily, but for a novice they are dangerous, being liable to cause the mishaps they are intended to prevent. Experienced bicyclers prefer any discomfort to that of a lost pedal, and when wheeling with only a light, even pressure, toe clips are good reminders, but their principal use is to apply more power and help the foot to carry the pedal around and back. The swaying of the body controls the bicycle from the saddle. The pressure comes from the saddle, and the bicycle is swayed by the rider, by leg pressure against the saddle. There is little or no shoulder movement, and the body, though flexible, does not move perceptibly. When starting a machine, hold it well balanced by the handlebars, and know how much inclination to allow. Take hold and mount steadily and easily, and move off quietly, noting the running of the bicycle. Gradually increase the speed, leaning a little forward to lessen any sudden strain and to help the push on the pedals. Then increase the stroke to the desired speed, and the machine will take care of itself. Speed power may be increased, and it is good practice to slow and start again at will. Figure wheeling with a good leader is capital practice to ensure steadiness and increase the power of control over the bicycle. It is not easy to stop suddenly when going at a good rate of speed, and it is well to know your limit of distance in such case. Nor is it easy to spring alertly from the saddle when bringing up in a dangerous position, even when frightened into doing it. Back pedal hard, grip with the hands and press down, holding the bicycle still as you reach the ground. The pedals will not get in the way, and it is well to remember not to let go of the machine if you do not want to get hurt. To jump off and hold the bicycle still may at times prevent collisions. The cyclist, however sure of his skill, should not throw his machine at anyone, even inadvertently. There is much unnecessarily fine riding done, dashing between two passing vehicles, for instance, or rushing through a gap instead of wheeling slowly behind a wagon until an open space is reached. But some prefer the stimulation and excitement of danger to safety, and like to perform such hazardous feats. Steering is a subject for serious consideration. A sharp eye, quick determination, constant care, and a steady hand are needed. A knowledge of steering is essential for safe coasting, and as one of the pleasures of cycling is to descend easily the hill you have climbed, a fair degree of steadiness should be attained. Brakes are important aids. Learn to brake with the foot, but do not resort to this expedient unless compelled to. Now to consider hill work. The resistance of the grade is always perceptible. It is not always recognized. As the angle of ascent increases, the powers of the bicyclist are taxed. The spindle of the pedal describes a circle. The foot part of the pedal revolves around the spindle and permits the foot to take any angle that is needed for the best application of power, the plane always, however, remaining parallel with the spindle. This arrangement of the pedal allows of ankle motion within certain limits, and to give greater efficiency, the foot and ankle may move in adjustment with the weight and power to be applied. This is the much talked of ankle motion. The pressure may be applied to the pedal by this ankle motion at any part or at all parts of the circle that the pedal describes. As constructed, the pedal permits free ankle and instep movement, prevents cramping of the foot, and allows the foot the same freedom that it has in walking or running. Ease of work depends on proper application of power. To be able to apply just the right amount of push to carry the crank past the dead center, and to pull it past the lowest dead center, and to follow the pedal accurately, is the aim of all good pedal work. The push down is almost instinctive, but the lifting of the weight from the ascending pedal can be acquired only by practice, when the muscles have become sufficiently accustomed to the work to move without the effort of mental concentration that they seem to require in the beginning. The power of the stroke may be given by applying the weight after the dead center is passed. The weight should be entirely removed from the ascending pedal, and the balance and sway used to take the pull off the handlebars by throwing the weight from side to side for that purpose. The weight and balance should be directed in this way. If the push on the down pedal only is used, it must be corrected by a pull on the handle. This pull increases as the grade obstructs the wheel. Skillful hill work shows in the lessened pull on the handles. In traveling on the level, the ascending foot is pushed up and rested by being lifted. There is no reason why the pushing muscles should be stronger than the lifting muscles of the leg, except that they are accustomed to do more work. Always try to ride a hill but never begin by looking at the top to see how far off it is. Pay no more attention to the surface than is absolutely required by the nature of the surface. Concentrate all thought on the pedals and how best to push or take the pull off the handlebars. Lean a little forward if necessary, and do not try to increase the stroke. The number of strokes is bound to lessen if the power is not increased proportionately on the ascent. And how can the power be effectively applied unless the work is done intelligently by mental application or instinctively by the use of accustomed muscles? Hills should be ridden easily or not ridden at all. It is easier to wheel up an ascent than to walk up if the wheeling is properly done. Always stop before the hill proves too much for you. Never think any incline too steep to attempt. This is the first move on the road to successful hill climbing. The seat for hill work should be made to support the body. The bicyclist should not be obliged to cling to the handles to keep from slipping off over the saddle. There should be something else to push against. To get all possible power out of the levers, there should be a sufficiency of fulcrum for the lever to work against, and the saddle should certainly be made to do duty in hill work. If there is no support from the rear of the saddle, the fulcrum must be located at the handlebars, which should have all possible strain removed from them to lessen the pedal work. A saddle placed at this angle is of little use as a fulcrum on an incline. In all work, levers and fulcrums are kept in position by the hands, unless the weight is supported from the saddle. If this principle of the application of power is considered, the usual difficulty of hill climbing is overcome. Why should it be harder to wheel up a hill than to walk up and push a bicycle? In the first place, it is necessary to be able to stay on the bicycle without holding yourself on. In the next place, to know how to apply the power, and then to perform the work, keeping all essential points well in mind. Wheel uphill with the mouth shut or get off. Wheel slowly. Concentrate power to apply it most effectively. Power is needed in overcoming both the crank dead centers. The weight should be applied to force the crank downward, and the weight lifted to let the other crank rise. The body sways to ease the handle pull, and the bicycle mounts steadily. The inertia, of course, becomes more apparent as the weight is resisted by gravity, so do not attempt to force or strain, with the idea that hill climbing is something that must be done. It should be done only when it can be done easily. The rule for climbing universally recommended reads, "Pay no attention to the hills, ride them." This is good as far as it goes, but it is of little assistance in mounting an incline. There are two kinds of grades independent of the angle, the increase grade and the decrease grade, in ascending and in descending as well, for descending is only the reverse of ascending. In approaching an ascending grade, always note its character, whether long or short, what the pitch is, and particularly if the angle of ascent increases or decreases at the top of the incline, and prepare for the work before you. Each hill has its peculiarities, which must be studied and conquered. The actual mounting to the top is not all you have to do. You should mount in proper trim, arriving at the summit fresh and fit. It is most saddening to see someone else mount a hill easily, leaving you puffing and pushing halfway up, and to know that when you reach the top, speechless and exhausted, that exasperating person will be seated there, cool, contemplative, and comfortable. Intelligent practice, however, should result in scientific attainment. The saddle should be adjusted in relation to the pedals for the carrying of the cranks past the dead center. The angle of the saddle should be studied, and the adjustment permit of its use as a fulcrum in hill work, while admitting of balance work on a level and of comfort and ease in coasting. It should support the weight when the feet are on the forks, not merely permit of balancing. In studying this adjustment, weight, length of limb, strength, and the work to be done should all be taken into consideration. The rule that what is lost in speed is gained in power should comfort the hill climber when halfway up a grade the bicycle gradually loses speed and seems to be stopping in spite of all efforts to the contrary. In mounting, the machine is started by the placing of the weight on the pedal, and in hill climbing, the weight should be used to force the pedal down and around. The bringing of the pedal into position where the weight will take effect is the true secret of success. Follow this by making the weight carry as far as possible, prolonging its usefulness by pushing the pedal back past the lowest dead center and following and lifting it. But it is useless to prolong the work if the commencement of the stroke is not executed in an effective manner. The upcoming pedal must either be pulled up or have all weight removed to permit the power to be fully effective on the down pedal. What is the point where power applied will begin to tell. If the upper dead center is left to be overcome by the downward stroke of the foot on the pedal, the foot on the ascending pedal is doing no work, only kept from doing harm, held in a cramped position. After carrying the crank past the lower dead center, the weight is removed, and the angle of the foot changed from pointing the toe down to holding the toe up and dropping the heel. As the footrest will follow the sole of the foot, it is a simple matter to change the pressure from pushing and pulling up to pressing and shoving over. Before the crank has arrived at the top of the circle, say at 60 degrees, the heel should be lowered, and the attention directed to pushing the cranks over and past the dead center. As the top of the circle is reached, the foot levels and prepares to point the toe to make an effective downward thrust. Rise from the saddle a little at this point to make the weight more effective, and prepare to carry the pedal back as far as possible. This method leaves very little time for the foot to change its angle, from the toe pointing downward to the toe held up ready to push. The change from pull to push is abrupt, and hill work depends on correct ankle motion more than anything else. The ankle motion may be corrected by swaying, the hands meanwhile being held lightly on the handlebars, ready for emergencies, but not used for the work of climbing. The breathless condition induced by extra work may be remedied, for the upper chest is forced to expand, while if the arms are held rigid, a plentiful supply of air for the lungs is not ensured. See Chapter on Exercises. free combustion is needed for the extra power exerted. The bicycle and its load are lifted, and a given weight requires a given power to lift it. That power must be supplied by the stored force of the human body, and must be utilized to the best advantage if the work is to be prolonged. Hill work is not impossible of achievement, but it requires intelligent work unless one applies mechanical laws intuitively. Easy hill work is delightful. It is work, hard work, but work done without strain. Nothing, on the other hand, can be more injurious than forced hill climbing. The strain on heart and lungs is severe, particularly for one wearing a tight belt or any constrictive clothing about the waist. Because a hill looks rough and the surface difficult, it does not at all follow that it will be bad wheeling. If the tires are not too full, inequalities of surface are an assistance, helping to block the wheels and preventing them from slipping back, while the soft tire takes up the stones and bumps, holding on by them. Always look well at your hill on approaching it. Study its inclination, determine its grade and the nature of its surface, and quickly decide how best to attack it. On mounting the top of a grade, never hurry or increase speed. Wheel along slowly and easily with the mouth shut until rested and really ready to start up. If there is a good coast, don't hurry to it, but keep working gently until the balance of the respiratory organs is fully restored. Then take the coast and all the benefits of hard work and rest, and the exhilarating effects of swift motion and free oxidation are fully realized. To work in balance or equilibrium is the aim of hill work, and there should not be too abrupt a transition after severe exertion. Pedal along at a pace to restore the breathing after hard work, then change. Never dismount when breathless, but wheel along slowly. The strain is thus much less than by forcing the body to accommodate itself to a change of position just when a general easing is required, a general slackening of all the muscles that have been at work. Rest always before dismounting, long enough at least to restore breathing, and rather than coast after climbing, back-pedal gently and slowly if the grade should descend from the top of the ascent. Never let a hill get the better of you. If it is one that you have a chance to attack a second time, set to work and study it. Find out the changes of grade and prepare for a change in the amount of power at the proper place in the incline. See if the grade is simple, prolonged, or compound. If the surface is very smooth, it will be more difficult. There is a bit of road that I remember well, a country road, seemingly good enough, with a little grade perhaps in some places, but one after another it dismounted us all. A heavy Telford pavement was laid, but there was still 1.5 miles of that road that winded the best of us every time. Though it was up-grade all the way, experience had taught us that at places we must stop and mount again and go on. Our machines were heavy, but this fact did not explain what puzzled us, for it ought not to be easier to start a heavy wheel up a grade than to continue to wheel up steadily. Knowing this bit of road so well, we were on the lookout to note its effect on others, and there were always wheels lined up at some part of the road, and a curious variety of expressions on the countenances of their riders, puzzled defeat on those unacquainted with the road, and sad determination on those who knew it too well. After a careful study of this grade, that was long but not steep, and seemingly not difficult, we found it made up of a series of differently inclined planes and curves, the up curves all against us, and taken from foot to top, there was a continued increase of pitch, with certain changes that were all against wheeling, and moreover, a generally increasing pitch for the whole distance, and 4 places of change of grade, each change an increase of pitch and an increased angle of ascent. The smooth surface concealed these difficulties at first, making the deceptive stretch appear easy and inviting. It was like the inside of a curved line set with scallops. To overcome this most difficult kind of incline, wheel along at a good pace, note the increase of grade, and drop the heel at the beginning of the downstroke, or rather, while the pedal is halfway on the upstroke and the foot is prepared to resist the change. Take into consideration the fact that an increase of power is necessary. Look where to apply it, adjust the balance of the body to the work, and your work will be effective. And with that empowering advice, I think we'll end this evening's reading from Bicycling for Ladies by Maria Ward. Once again, I can't help but note that all of that advice applies to both men and women, so I hope we can all take good instruction from this. If you'd like to read this work for yourself and learn how to pedal a bike that has no gears and probably weighs about 60 pounds, as always, you'll find a link to a free ebook from Project Gutenberg in the show description. If you'd like to connect, suggest a boring book you'd like to hear read, or request more from one we've already started, you can drop me an email via our website, www.boringbookspod.com. It's always a pleasure to hear from you. Thank you so much for joining me for this evening's reading. Until our next boring book, good night.